Welcome to the first and only call-in show dedicated to the simulation hypothesis. I am the one and only RAO. This is home of the Neon Alliance. Now, today I'd like to talk about the history of this. Actually, last week I said I was going to talk about it, and somebody in the simulation theory group on Facebook brought it up within the week. I'm not sure if they had watched my video or not, but they had brought up, has there been any idea of the simulation hypothesis before computers? And that was actually pretty interesting to me. And I'd been thinking about that idea of it for a while. So today I'd like to talk about Plato. I want to talk about, and I am going to pronounce this name different and wrong every time. I apologize. I've never heard it pronounced before, and I've seen it read 4 different ways. But the one that I found that I'm going to try to stick with is Chuang Tzu. Chuang Tzu. And we're also going to talk about Rene Descartes. All 3 of these people were basically laying the foundation for the simulation hypothesis before ones and zeros became the language of the simulation hypothesis. And I'd like to welcome the viewers in chat. Thank you for joining me today. It's great to see you in here. And these people, these philosophers, they were talking about explaining things in a concept that they could perceive at that time with their technology and their current state of thinking. Now, the first one was Plato and his allegory of the cave. And I'm going to do my best to explain this quickly but thoroughly. Now, in the allegory of the cave, we're going to say that you are, for all intents and purposes, paralyzed. You have a wall in front of you, and the only thing that you can, and you have a fire behind you. Now, between the fire and you, people will walk, people will talk, people will interact with each other. But all you're going to see is what is represented on the cave walls. You would think that the voices are coming directly from the cave, from the shadows, because that's all you've ever perceived. And then he talks about stepping out and seeing the rest of reality as we know it, where you're seeing colors, shape, texture for the first time. But you can also see the shadows. You can see what was there, what you were seeing on the cave wall, and you can see that it was just a projection of the real thing. What I want to explore gets into more along into the 2004 movie, and it was based on a book. I don't remember the author, but it was Flatlanders, where you go back into the cave. And remember, now you're between the fire and the people. So they only see you as a shadow now. They can't even see you the way that you see them. And you're trying to explain shape and texture and depth to people who have never seen it before, and you're trying to explain that you are not the real thing that they're seeing on the wall. There's a difference between you and what's being projected to them. And that, like I said, that gets into unfalsifiable. And this is purely speaking on a philosophical tone. But just to have that concept of trying to explain that to somebody who's never seen that before was the idea of trying to have reality explained to us. And I apologize for the background noise. We've got people working on the apartment next door, working on the floors there, so it is vibrating all throughout here, and I can feel it, and I can see it going on in my microphone, so I'm pretty sure that you can hear it, and I just want to let you know that's what was going on. Well, that leads us into Chuang Tzu. And he had the idea, he dreamt that he was a butterfly. And when he woke up, he was unable to determine if he was Chuang Tzu or if he was a butterfly having a dream that he was Chuang Tzu. And I'm not sure if he actually had this idea, or if he actually had this dream, or if it's just the way that he was conveying the idea. Because he could be just conveying the idea in a way that other people could understand it when he has this in mind. So I'm not sure if he literally had a dream about being a butterfly. But that was another idea that we could be a projection, not of something simpler than us, but even something more complex than what you actually are. Because if you are just the butterfly and you're having the dream of the human experience, he's perceiving that you can perceive beyond what you know you can. I don't necessarily agree with this philosophy, but it was interesting to see that somebody would take it to that step, where they would say that we don't have to break things down into simpler things. A more complex simulation doesn't have to form a simpler one, doesn't have to form a simpler one. And he goes the complete opposite direction with it. But at the same time, you also have to explore the idea that we are having a conscious experience, and we explore that conscious experience with each other. We don't even know what the consciousness itself is. But there's no way of saying if it's even your dream, or if you are a part of somebody else's dream. There's no way of telling even that much, because there have been people in your dream, and you only explore that dream for a few seconds. But at the same time, hours go by, and you don't have all the details, but the story will get there as it needs to be there. Like, it's a lot the same way that when you're looking at a game, it's only rendering what's in front of you. You only see what's in your first eye view. Everything behind you isn't being rendered because it doesn't need to be. The space is there for it, but it doesn't actually need to be projected in front of you at the time. And it can, I'll bring up No Man's Sky again. No Man's Sky generates new worlds as you explore them. But once it generates that world, it doesn't consistently render it, but it keeps it there. So that's similar to the stories in your dreams, that they are only as in depth as they need to be. And we see these analogies, these similar analogies explained in completely different ways. And then we get to Rene Descartes, who the I think therefore I am is a little bit more simplified than what he actually said. And what he actually meant was that because he's able to doubt his existence, then it is proof that he exists. And we can't, I would go as far to say that you can't even guarantee that, because there are, at this point, it's unfalsifiable whether or not the mind is independent or part of something bigger. And even though Rene Descartes was a theologian, I wouldn't go to the something bigger and say that's where God is because we can't explain it anymore. I don't know if Neil deGrasse Tyson said this or if he paraphrased or if he got it from somebody else. But you don't put God where explanation stops. And so just because we don't have an explanation does not mean that we should plug some kind of deity in there. If there is a different stage of reality, if we are part of a dream, that doesn't mean that we stop there and call it God. It means that we have ideas to explore on both ends. We have, is this our reality prime, or are we one of billions of potential simulations? Now, I think that sums up everything that I had for today. I'm noticing some people in the chat. I've got a phone number right down here where you can call in and discuss the simulation hypothesis with me, whether you agree with me with it or not. But specifically regarding the history of it and other potential explanations that you would have for these philosophers, or something that you would say in counter to these specific philosophies. So we are opening up the lines now. That number again is coming up. Give me just a minute. 307-363-1230. I actually wouldn't be able to tell from here. I've got chat talking to me right now. We've got normalizing atheism asking if my subscriber count went up. I wouldn't be able to tell from where I'm looking at it. I've got all kinds of screens going on here, and that's just not one of them. But it is good to see the normalizing atheism and Crash the Party from the Atheist Network Group, aka Tang. And that is basically the basis for what we're doing here. Is we're exploring different aspects of the simulation hypothesis. We're bringing up ideas we're trying to understand reality better by questioning reality itself. And what me and others along with me are understanding more is that the more we learn, the less we know what we can know. And the line between what we can know and what we can't know gets thinner as it expands. It goes on, it goes further where we realize there's a whole bunch of things we can't know. We realize there's more that we can't know. But the things that we can know keeps approaching that circle. And I just want to see, I want to see the edge of that circle. I want to see the edge of what we can know. But since we've got a little bit of time, I thought I would read a comment from 2 weeks ago. Well, it was a comment from last week, but it was a comment from my video 2 weeks ago when we were talking about Moore's Law and Elon Musk. And we're not gonna read his name, but it's too bad all you have is repeating simulation theories formed in the minds of other people instead of our creator, using your created mind to process the information that has taught me everything about the simulation creation we're involved in that no simulation theorist will believe. Usually you theorist believers do not actually believe how you're created as invisible vibrations that contain all the created minds, the servant AI system, with a voice that enables you to speak, hear, smell, taste, feel emotions, and gives you the idea that you do your own thinking and where all of our life experiences exist before any visible images are observed. Now, that is something else that I would like to separate from the simulation hypothesis, because trust me, there is more of it in the simulation hypothesis community than I'm comfortable with. And it's taking an idea that is based in philosophy and has a reasonable amount of evidence for it to be explored. I'm not saying with any certainty that we are in a simulation. I've said from the start of this that I find it to be most likely. And I want to discuss the philosophy and the evidence, however circumstantial it may be. And find out if I'm on the right path, if I'm exploring, if I'm not barking up the wrong tree. I mean, to put it bluntly. And that's why I'm not afraid to talk about this in a public manner, because I'm not afraid to be wrong. I'm just going to stand by this argument until I either have more evidence to support it, in which I will move it from hypothesis to theory. Because at this point, we are still in the unfalsifiable stage. Flat out, I think we're approaching the point where we're getting into being able to falsify it or confirm it, but I don't think we're there yet. So when we have more evidence that confirms the hypothesis, I will move I will move with science and call it a theory. And if we find evidence that contradicts the simulation hypothesis, I will move with science and call it a funny idea. That's basically what I'm doing here, is trying to find out one way or the other exactly what we have, exactly what we're doing, and trying to have some fun while I'm doing it. So, until next time, keep it real.